So I had a conversation the other day which affected me in a profound way. And I'm going to break one of the rules that I have for Mark My Words is that it's apolitical, that there should be no politics, there should be no talk about um, anything to do with that could be divisive, you know? Um, we all have opinions on everything, on gay marriage, on abortion, on mental illness, but we all kind of keep those to ourselves and we kind of respect that other people are doing the same thing. But I have a conversation which, to say it affected me profoundly, is an understatement. It shocked me. It broke my heart. And I'm going to share why that conversation shocked me so much and kind of the mental health ramifications that it's had for me. But I want to state emphatically that I support the state of Israel. I've just lost a whole bunch of followers. I don't doubt it. I hope that I don't, because I want to talk to you about this. I want to talk to you about why I'm saying it. And I hope that you'll stick around and listen to the whole story. Um, I'm going to do it a little bit different. Normally, I have a bit of a jingle that I play here and welcome to the show. Not going to do that. Like, share, and subscribe if you like. But let's just dive into this conversation and why I've interrupted this important podcast to talk about something political. We're going to do that right now. So, in my life, I've tried to surround myself with people that don't do certain things. So, if you're a person that's extremely prejudiced, I won't bring you into my life. If you're a person that's abusive or, severe kind of domestic abuse or something like that, I will not bring you into my life. During the Me Too movement, I was at this conference and all the ladies were up there and they were Me Tooing it up. And I said, okay, that's great. But as men sitting here, we want to know what to say to support you in the Me Too movement. Tell us what to say. And a woman said, well, what you need to do is stop associating with people that are sexist, that will do locker talk. Well, the thing is, I don't do that. I bring into my own personal life people that I might disagree with vehemently on certain issues, but I understand that they're understanding of every people's perspective, that they're people that will hear the other side of a story and will, at least be understanding and at least come to the point where we both go, look, it's not comfortable for us to discuss this, but I like you and we have so much in common. So let's just stay away from those kind of issues. And that's what I've tended to do. However, I was sitting with a bloke the other day, somebody that I've invited into my life, somebody that I liked, somebody that we don't really click personally, but we get on. And he was talking about the march in Sydney Harbour, talking about the pro Gaza demonstration. And somehow I let out, which I never do, especially to people that I'm just kind of, he and I are polite to each other. We never really spent a significant amount of time together. But it came out that I actually support Israel. And he did a double take. He went, hang on, you support Israel? And I said, yeah, no, absolutely. I believe historically that they have a right to exist. I believe that what they're doing in Hamas is, terrible, what the Gazan people are going through. But at the same time, and I used the word but, I didn't mean to. And at the same time, I understand that there's reasons why that's happening. If somebody's holding a knife to your throat, you don't tell them to keep holding it there. You try and take the knife away. That's a real simplification of what's going on in Israel, but that's the way I do it in my head. So what was so shocking about this conversation? Well, first off, he said, I just can't believe what the Israelis are doing. He said, it's like the bullied have become the bullies. And I went, hang on a second. What do you mean? And he said, well, the poor Gazans didn't do anything to deserve this. And I said, hang on. What about the 6-Day War? What about the Yom Kippur War? What about the invasion of Lebanon? What about all these other things? And he goes, oh, I don't know anything about that. And I said, well, you can agree that what happened on October 7th was terrible. And he goes, oh, yeah, but understandable. And I went, hang on a second. Hang on a second. I said, how can you say that that's understandable? And he said, it's nothing compared to what Israel has done to them. Clearly having no understanding of the history. The conversation went on. I was getting more and more uncomfortable. And then he said a number of statements that truly threw me. I've never been confronted with racism. Well, I hadn't been until a couple of years ago where I met somebody who was the most racist piece of crap that I've ever met in my life. And I was working in a shop, so I couldn't react the way that I wanted to. But I was shocked. I was stunned that somebody could believe the way that she did. So black and white about who's good and who's bad, what race is terrible, what race is not. This guy said, if only the Germans had have finished the job in World War II, we wouldn't be having these problems. I stopped him. I said, what did you just say? And he goes, oh, no, I don't say that. But, that's what some people believe. Clearly, it's something that he believes. I'm outraged to the point of being muted. I don't know what to say to this. A guy with no understanding of history, no understanding of what's going on, has decided that it's okay to talk about the fact that the Germans didn't finish the job. And I just turned to him, I said, I'm from Ireland. That would be like saying that what if the British had finished their job, there would be no Ireland situation. It's just, to me, it's so bizarre that somebody would say something like, and so hateful and disgusting. He continued to iterate that it was Israel's fault, that they were stealing land. I watched a movie the other day. It's called Don't Mess with the Zohan. Stupid movie. But at one point, a Palestinian turns to Zohan and says, you have no right to be in our country. And he went sarcastically, yeah, you're right. None of my ancestors have ever set foot in this land. For those that don't know, there has been a constant Jewish presence in the land of Israel through eternity for the last 2,000 years. There are Jews that are indigenous there, still indigenous. This conversation was clearly getting away from me. I couldn't believe that somebody in my orbit could say something so horrible, so hate-filled, but it wasn't the worst. He then turned to me and said, I think these people are the worst people in history. And I couldn't let this go. And I said, are you talking about the Jews? And you could tell in that moment that I'd caught him in his rhetoric. Because now all the protesters are saying, death to the IDF, death to soldiers. We know what they really mean. We know that they're talking about death to Israel. That's what the Palestinians want. That's what everybody in Gaza wants. And I said, you're saying that the Jews are the worst people in history. And he said that what Hitler did, he didn't do it for no reason. At this point, I'm beyond flabbergasted. I'm stunned. I said, you think they're the worst people in history? He said, yep, without a doubt. I said, Hitler. They're worse than Hitler. And he goes, oh no, they're the second worst. And then I hit him with the Khmer Rouge. I talked about communist China, talked about North Korea, talked about And in all of these, somehow, in his mind, he was saying that Israel was the worst of all these people. Needless to say, this conversation has had a profound effect on me. And I've been thinking a lot about what my response is to having a conversation like this. Now, it's not like I went to a march for Palestine and listened to some extremist waving an ISIS flag shouting from the river to the sea. This was a guy that I considered somebody that I could become friends with, somebody that would be my next door neighbor, somebody that I could learn to love as a brother. And yet he's saying these horrible, horrible things. The thing about the Holocaust is it was a genocide against the Jews, without question. But it was also a genocide against a number of other people. And I realized why I feel so strongly about this is because if I was living in Nazi Germany, even though I'm the whitest white person in the world, I have a mental illness. At the very least, I would have been sterilized. At worst, I would have been in a concentration camp. Just because I live with a mental illness. My wife, my two of my daughters have epilepsy. They're gone. At least sterilized. And I was wondering why I was so affected by this conversation. And I realized that what if we were still doing that to people with mental illness? We've come so far in our society that at one time they were sterilized, ostracized, and gassed. Fact. We now look at that as barbaric, but why are we looking at Jews and having people thinking this stuff about them? About Israel? I don't understand it. I was thinking about a couple of students, the Scholls. Sophie Scholl is the most famous. They started this little movement called the White Rose Movement. During the peak of Nazi Germany's reign, they printed up some flyers and they dropped them from the top of the school so that everybody would see them. They were executed as traitors. I wondered about them, why they said something. Why didn't they just say nothing? Wouldn't it be easier? Because yes, I support the nation of Israel. I stand with Israel unequivocally. Don't like what's happening in Gaza, but I understand it. I get it. But in my silence, there is no risk. I'm not putting anything at risk by thinking that stuff in the privacy of my own home. The Scholls, the brother and sister, they were risking nothing if they kept silent. There's another picture from 1936, and it's Adolf Hitler showing up at this trade union movement. And every German in the crowd is leaning forward, doing that abhorrent Hitler salute, clearly shouting Sieg Heil. In this famous picture, there's a guy in the background whose arms are crossed. That cost that man. We don't know exactly who he is. We know that things turned out badly for the first guy they thought it was. But would I have the courage to do that? And that's why I'm doing this podcast today. I know that I'm going to lose followers. I know that there's people that are going to hear the words, I stand with Israel, and they will go, Mark, you are a racist and clearly you hate children. But I couldn't stay silent, particularly after this conversation. I didn't know that my neighbors, the people in my orbit, could think such horrible things. Now, I understand if you've been inundated with what the media says and you believe that, what Israel is doing is wrong. I get that. I get that you want to support the Palestinian people. Anybody looks at people in suffering. But you have to ask the Palestinians, where are all their gay people? They're in Israel. Where are all their Jews? They're certainly not in Gaza. They're in Israel. Where do women have equal rights? It's in Israel, not Gaza. Israel is not perfect. I'm not saying that it's perfect. I know that it's not perfect. But in an imperfect world, they have a knife to their throats. Thousands of their people could get burned, attacked, raped on any day. I guarantee you, if they were able to, Hamas would do another one of those raids tomorrow, and hundreds of people would participate. Seeing no reason why that was not a completely legitimate thing to do. My silence costs me nothing. I don't have much of a platform. I'm not a famous dude. I'm not a dude that's well known. Like the Shoals, I have a flyer. I have my voice. I have my tiny internet presence. And I won't stay silent. I can't stay silent. If we don't believe in the right for Israel to exist, what does that say about us? If you believe that Jews, what have these people done to us? What did this guy think that the Jews in Germany had done to the rest of Germany to make them deserve? I nearly choke when I think of that. Deserve what happened to them? If somebody in my orbit can think such horrible things, I will not stay silent. I will take the risk. I will say equivocally that I stand with Israel, no matter what the cost is. Would I be brave enough to be like that man, held his arms, crossed his arms at that trade union movement? I don't know. I hope so. I'm nobody. I'm no one. I'm just a dude. But I will say it over and again and again. I believe in the right of Israel to exist, to defend itself, to give itself the best quality of life that they possibly can. I don't know if I'm ever going to speak to this person again on a personal basis. I have to deal with them professionally. I honestly don't know what I'm going to do, because I was standing next to him today and I just wanted to punch him. That's all I wanted to do. I saw the hateful comments coming out of his mouth. And I can't stay silent. I couldn't stay silent. I won't stay silent. I feel for the people of Gaza, but they could end this tomorrow. Disarm Hamas, give the hostages back, and it would be done. But they won't do that, because hate, murder, gets them more attention. You can support this podcast in a number of ways. I am going to be in trouble. I'm going to be losing subscribers. But I don't care. You can support us. You can like, share, subscribe. You can go to Patreon. You can support us financially. Today had to be said, and I could not stay silent. Shalom and good night. Thank you for listening to Mark My Words. I'd like to thank my producer, Meredith Brosnan, and also Torian, Kevin, and Lorraine. And I can't forget the band Adelaide, who allows us to use their song as our theme.